What is up, everyone? Back today again, another video. We're talking about how should we progress in the gym? How do we progress our training? What do we do? Obviously, when we're inside the gym, how do we go about it? We've spoke about progressive overload in previous videos and how we're going to progress our lifts. But again, this is an area where people get lost. They don't understand how to progress, and they add too much weight too fast. Some people they don't add enough weight. They start adding extra sets, all this stuff. They don't really know and understand how to progress and how we're gonna go about it. So I'm gonna give you an example. Hopefully, again, you've watched the previous videos where we talk about design and training programs and all the different splits that I've put up, and you will see very similar a top set and back off method. So in the same session, let's say we take an example of 2 sets. You have your first heavy top set and then a back off set, and you'll see that in all of the program and videos that I've put in previous weeks. So first off, what governs all of this, number one principle of progression, and then what will cause progression, it's stimulus, recovery, adaptation. Absolutely vital. Stimulus, this is your training session. The body is then going to recover, again, outside the gym, with your nutrition, your sleep, enough rest days in between coming back in and having another bout of stimulus for a muscle group. That's where the recovery happens, which allows adaptation to come about. That's progressive overload, and then you come back with an even better stimulus. That's how it works. So it's getting on a run of this cycle, and then this is what these progressions will display: stimulus, recovery, adaptation happening as a process. Now let me just, the examples here, I want to work you through the rates of progression, what you can expect, how this plays out in the real world, when you can see it set by set, week by week, so you can understand how it should play out if you're doing things correctly, right? So start off, we talk about the 2 sets example. So the top set back off method. Now let's just take a hack squat as an example, right? So this is your first movement of the day, 2 sets that we're doing, right? Now, for the purpose of this video and for a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about here, I'm going to assume that we're taking all of our sets all the way to the point that we can't do another rep. Hence, there's only 2 sets. We're taking these sets all the way to the point there's not another good rep in the tank. We are not leaving 4 or 5 reps in the tank. We are not training like an absolute shit parcel here. We're training hard. We're pushing these sets. Hence, again, only 2. So we have a heavy set in the 6 to 8 range, and then the 10 to 15, right? Nothing special about that. It just gives us 2 different rep ranges to work in and try and set a personal best each week. It's a nice little game to play, right? So week one, both sets, you've got your top set and then your back off. So as an example, let's say we come in week 1, we get 6 reps at 200 pounds. So we're on the bottom end of this rep range. So that's week 1, right? We come in, we set a baseline, 200 pounds, 6 reps. Perfect. Then we do again, you'll rest 3 to 5 minutes, you'll take off a little bit of load, and then you do your second set. So this is your back off set in week 1, a set of 12 at 160. So you're in the middle of this rep range. So there are your 2 sets for week 1. You see, 6 at 200 and your 12 at 160. That's your baseline then. That's your stimulus. And now you have to do your job outside the gym to allow recovery and adaptation to come. So then next time you can come back in here on week 2, you can present a better stimulus, right? So week 2, we come in, because we're on the bottom end of the rep range here with 6 at 200 pounds, we don't need to add weight. We just want to try and get to the top end of this rep range before we add weight. So that could take us a couple of weeks. Hence, on week 2, we come in, a set of 7 at 200 pounds, job done. That's a good sign. We've got an extra rep from week 1 to week 2 with the same load. We haven't had to add any sort of weight at all. Perfect, right? Your back off set, and up an extra rep, so we went from 12 to 13 with the same weight. Perfect. So you've accumulated 2 extra reps. Fantastic. Job done. That's a good sign that you're doing all this correctly. Perfect, right? Week 3. So then what do we do? I want to throw a curveball in here. This is what happens to a lot of people, and then they panic and think that they're doing things wrong when you're not. Week 3, they come back in, and you get 7 reps again at 200 pounds. It's the exact same as week 2. And this is where people panic and they think, oh shit, my training's not working. No, you can't progress reps or weight every week. These weeks will happen and it's totally normal, right? This may just have moved a little bit better the last rep may have felt a little bit more powerful, more stronger. No need to panic. So week 3, you've matched week 2. Then your back off set, again, you've had a little +1, you got an extra rep with the same weight. So sometimes that can happen. Your first set can be static and stay the same, but second set can go up. So again, you're still trending in the right direction. We're not making these +1 reps or more weight every week. That won't happen, okay? Week 4, we come in, bang, we make the breakthrough. We get the 8 at 200 pounds. So that took you 4 weeks to go from 6 to 8 reps. That's really, really solid. So you got your 8 to 200 pounds on your top set. Week 4, again, you've doubled down on 14 reps again at 160. Again, no big deal. Now we come into week 5. So then what do? You've reached the top end of the rep range. You got 8. Top end of the rep range, you got 8 with 200 pounds. So we just reset it. We just add 5 pounds. And again, your reps will probably come right back down to 6. And then we start that whole process again until you get 8 reps with 205. So then you get to the top end of the rep range. Make sense? So you got 205, you've reset the rep range. Or your week 5, you finally got your breakthrough. You got your 15 reps at 160. Perfect. And now on week 6, you go up 5 pounds here, 12 reps, and you begin this process until you get to the 15 reps, and then you'll have more weight again. So can you see, that's a 6-week process. That is not adding 5 pounds and adding a rep every week. Because if we could do that, we'd be the world's strongest man in 2 years' time. This is an idea of how it plays out in the real world application. So that's 6 weeks of progression in 2 different rep ranges. So you've added 5 pounds and you've added a couple of reps here and there. That's great. That shows that this is working, and that's what to expect, okay? So that's just an example of how that can play out. That's a hack squat example, so a bigger compound lift. Now I wanted to talk about an isolation movement, like a preacher curl, like a single arm dumbbell preacher curl, or some sort of hamstring curl, or a tricep push down, some sort of isolated movement, a medial delt raise as an example, because these compound lifts and these bigger lifts will progress differently than these, and it's something that you have to be cautious of or be aware of. So obviously a hack squat is going to be using bigger muscles, a lot more musculature than a preacher curl. A preacher curl, we're just isolating the bicep. That's not going to be able to see rates of progression that you might do here. So smaller isolated stuff, you have to be more patient. Don't expect rep progressions or weight jumps each week, because it's most definitely not going to happen with this. So let's just say we don't need a top set back off method of isolated movements. You can do that, you don't have to do it, right? So let's take 2 by 10 to 15 reps, right? So week 1, we get a set of 12 and then a set of 10 with a 30-pound dumbbell, single arm preacher curl, right? Set of 12 and then a 10. Week after next, we get 13 and then 10. So we get an extra rep. Perfect. Week 3, we match exactly the same as week 2. Again, no harm done. We're still allowing this to happen. Week 4, we get 13 still, but then 11, your back offset comes off a touch. Week 5, 14, 11. Week 6, 14, 11. So you can see in 6 weeks, we've accumulated 3 reps. Now that might not look like a lot, but over 6 weeks, that is a lot. Now you imagine that in 6 months' time, this is then going to get to 15 reps, and then you're going to go maybe 35 pounds dumbbell, and then the process begins again. So you have to zoom out with isolated movements, and you have to look at the big picture and a bird's eye view, right? So understand your big compound lifts and your isolated movements are going to be slightly different in terms of your rate of progression, right? So a couple of key considerations here, and I needed to throw these in just to caveat and end off the video. Number 1, are we in a deficit or a surplus? This is going to impact all of this. If you're in a deficit, you're not going to be able to progress as fast as if you're well fed in a surplus. There's just no way. If anything, on some things like presses as an example, you will actually start to drop a little bit of performance slowly as you lose stability and you lose body fat. So whether you're in a deficit or well fed will have an influence on your rate of progressions like this. So if you're in a deficit, don't expect to see this happening every week. It may slow down a touch, okay? So another one, is it a new movement? Have you incorporated a new movement? Because there will be a neurological and learning curve. There's an adaptation process to new movements, because you become better skilled at a new lift when you bring it in. If you've got a lift that you've been running for 25 weeks consistently, you've took care of all of those neurological adaptations up front. So your progressions are purely going to be muscular at that stage. When you bring in a new movement, anywhere from the first 1 to 6 weeks, maybe a little bit longer, again, depends on the individual, there's going to be a big skill component and learning curve to some movements. So you might find extra jumps and reps. You might be able to progress a little bit faster if you bring in a new movement that you haven't had in for a while. And then once you get those first 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks out of the way of learning how to do it, then the progress, it slows down and it's very incremental, as an example like this. So it's just something to be mindful of when you bring in new movements. Another one, training age. How long have you been training for? Now, obviously, training age can mean multiple different things. How long have you been training properly for is a better way to look at that, because we know people who've trained for 10 years, but they train like shit. So let's just say, how many years have you trained properly for? If you've got someone who's a rank beginner, who's got 2 months experience, versus someone who's been training correctly for 15 years, like spot on, the rates of progression are going to be totally different. The beginner is going to be able to see rep progressions, weight progressions every week, more so. The more advanced lifter, like it might be pretty difficult to see this happening every single week or even every 2-3 weeks. It can be slow. So again, your proper training age, that's something to take into account. And then obviously the final one, huge piece of the puzzle, which I always talk about, it's form standardization. If you're making these progressions, but you're letting your technique get worse and worse just to get an extra rep or add a little bit of weight, we've all been culpable of it, even me. So this is what we're always checking ourselves on. This is why we record our videos. Again, having a good coach in your corner as well to keep you standardized and on point with things. But making sure you're progressing with standardized technique is absolutely critical. That's how you're going to direct the best stimulus, mechanical tension to the target muscle that we're trying to work. Anyone can just use momentum and shit technique just to get an extra rep or add more weight, but that is not progressive overload. That is not going to cascade this process, because you're changing the stimulus that you're given by using momentum or changing technique. So you have to keep yourself honest, keep yourself strict with your technique, and allow this to happen with strict, progressed, similar technique from week 1 to week 6. It has to remain the same, okay? So just to finish off, progressing your lifts like this with standardized technique, progressing your lifts while pushing your body weight up slowly, that is the key to build muscle tissue. If you could frame that on a wall as the most important thing to look at with your training, it's lift progressions with standardized technique while slowly pushing your body weight up. That is how you're going to build muscle tissue over the next 1, 2, 3, 10 years, okay? That is a vital concept to understand. So, hope this video helps you all out. Hope you can understand the rate of progression, how you can go about it. Let me know what you think of the video. Drop yourself some comments down below. Subscribe, like the video. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. There's a lot of people watching these vids who are not subscribed. Make sure you're here, and there's more videos coming every week. All right, speak to you soon.